I'm Reverend Liz Morante, and I want to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living in Monterey as we go into March. I think I said this in February, but it's like exactly March. March. Oh my gosh. I'm going to turn around tomorrow, and it's going to be November. But it's okay because life is good. So I have a couple of questions for you, and it would probably be more helpful if you were really honest for yourself. I know that there's some people in this room who've been in this teaching a long, long time, and some of you who are brand new, some of you who may not even really know what this teaching is. So some questions. It's, what parts of your life do you find annoying? Just kind of think. Or what parts of your life is there something kind of wrong with? And it could be anything. It could be the home you live in. It could be your work. It could be the state of your car. It could be your body. And the other question for you is, what in your life is wonderful? And which question is it easier for you to answer? Which one does your mind go right to fill in the blanks? What's annoying and has some stuff you don't like in it, or what's wonderful? Because many of us, we can come up with the wonderful thing, but it takes us a little bit. But what's wrong or annoying, boom, we can just list that right there. And why this is important, and we'll certainly get to it more in a moment, is that where our attention flows, there our life goes. So can you imagine what it would be like if your life were a complaint-free zone? Now, to help us deepen in that idea, that imagining, I am going to use something called Lent that some of you know about, and I was raised with. I thought everybody in the Christian tradition was raised with Lent, and then I found out, no, it's actually, it's a Catholic thing, certainly, it's an Episcopal thing, but it wasn't carried out through all the Protestant churches. But Lent, which a couple years ago found out just means spring. Lent is the time that commemorates, it's the 40 days leading up to the celebration of Easter, and it commemorates when Jesus the Christ went out into the desert. It was when he was moving into the really being in his ministry. And he was out in the desert, so the story goes, for 40 days and 40 nights, and he wasn't eating or drinking anything. And the devil came, it is said, and tempted him with all kinds of things like, well, if you're really the Son of God, you can just and create some food and wine. Jesus said, no, this is my time to really get real and contemplate what I'm up to, what I'm about to do and be. And then the devil came back and said, well, I'm not sure you're really who you think you are. If you're really like the Son of God, God in form, why don't you just hurl yourself off that cliff and see if you can still live? And Jesus said, no, not going to do that, not going to show off for you. And then I think the devil brought all kinds of interesting things, and to really try to tempt him by displaying his power. But the call of God, just like the call of the phone, the call of God was strong in him. And so he didn't. He kept to his fasting, and additionally, he fasted from doing anything that would get his mind off spirit, the truth of who he was and the truth of his life, not get seduced by promises of power or acclaim. And so in the Christian tradition, then, for the 40 days before Easter that's been called the Lenten time, Christians will give up stuff. That's how we called it when I was a kid. So like the first thing I remember, give up things we really liked. So when I was a little kid, my favorite thing in the world was fried chicken. So I gave up fried chicken for Lent. Then later on, I gave up chocolate. You know, that was a deeper path. But in my children's lexicon, it was give up, but the really idea is that we fast. We fast from things that we like, and in that way, keep our eye more focused on God. You could say that it was a way of getting good, becoming better, becoming pure for Easter, but I think it was just a way of really not letting the things in the world that we love be a distraction. Now, we in New Thought can also use this practice, and many ministers cleverer than I have thought of cute little names that Lent would be an anagram for, like, let's experience New Thought. But I personally like, and this is the theme for this month, is let's end, or I realize later eliminate's probably the word I really want, let's eliminate negative thinking. Let's use this time, we don't quite have 40 days yet left, but let's use this time to eliminate negative thinking, to fast from those things that keep us from experiencing and expressing our spiritual magnificence. And instead of really having the focus on food, although that was good for a little kid, and you know, if you have something, food or drink that distracts you, that's great. But what I would like to focus on for the next 4 Sundays is behaviors that take us away from an experience of God, from an experience of our spiritual magnificence. Emma Curtis Hopkins, who I love to employ at times like this, a woman who lived in the last part of the 19th century, in the first part of the 20th century, Emma Curtis Hopkins, called the Nike woman of metaphysics and New Thoughts. She was called the teacher of teachers. She taught the Fillmores, who founded Unity, or taught a student of hers taught the Fillmores, who founded Unity, and she herself, one of her very last private students was Ernest Holmes, who founded our Science of Mind teaching. So Emma was great at fasting from what doesn't serve, and she said it's like brushing the cobwebs away from the window so the divine splendor that we are can shine out. I like to use more contemporary term, it's like spiritual exfoliation. Those of you who've been around for a while may have heard me use that before, but it's spiritual exfoliation to stop indulging, engaging, feasting on negative thinking that does not serve us. And yes, we can do it any time of the year, and I hope this becomes a practice you'll keep on. But what I like to do is say, if there's a group of people in the consciousness of and engaging in some practice that I want to join in with, then I am lifted by their consciousness. So we all can be lifted by the consciousness of people, even if they interpret it a little bit differently, who are fasting from that which does not serve. So we join with Christians all over the world who are fasting from that which doesn't serve. And we get to decide what the fast is, but we join in that consciousness and know that all of us can take this journey which allows us to be reborn into something new at Easter that we can also choose to make up and join with. But it is this idea that is perennial in humankind, that we can choose to be reborn, we can choose to be made new in any second. But the deeper being made newness comes when we prepare. And so that's what this time can be. It's often said that we die to those things that no longer serve. But that's kind of for the end of the month, that metaphor. We get to the stronger metaphors as we get to the end of the month. So this week, the kind of negative thinking that we're going to look at ending or eliminating just for the next 4 weeks as a practice is complaining, which is it's endemic, it's pernicious for many of us. So what do you complain about? As I said before, do you complain about work? Do you complain about your spouse or your partner? I just saw some knowing looks, but I won't reveal who I was looking at. Do you complain about your health? Many of us post-50 people. Kinds of interesting things, some of which we had known would happen, some of which we didn't. Oh my God, who knew the body could do that? How interesting. And often we don't say how interesting. We start complaining about it. Maybe we have little aches and pains. Maybe there's stuff we need to do. Maybe our house is a mess. Maybe there's some things we've been meaning to get around to, but we haven't. We look at it. There's all kinds of things to complain about. And if there was one don't in our New Thought teaching, that would be it. Don't complain. Emma says that whining and complaining are evidence of desert spots in our character. Dry, parched places with complaining. But I want to give you a definition of complaining so you don't mistake my meaning. Complaining is bitching to people about something when they're not the ones who can do anything about it. That's what complaining is. Complaining is not going to you've got a problem and it's because of something that another person can affect, going to that person and saying, this is not working, can you help me solve this? And then you solve it. That's not complaining. In Seattle, Dr. Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis would create no complaining at our CBEC summer camp and on the trips abroad that she leads. And she's very clear that if there's something that's not working for you, like you're in a hotel and the room is, something really wonky, or there's a leak, not complaining doesn't mean you endure that in silence because you're a spiritual person. No, it means instead of telling everybody in your group, oh my God, I've got this leak in my room, and you go to the hotel manager or the person at the front desk and say, there's a leak in my room, can you fix it? So do you see the difference? Complaining is telling your tale of woe to people who have no power to fix it, and the truth is, you aren't doing anything about getting it fixed. You're just telling your story everywhere. So why is complaining such a problem? Since we do it. I mean, do they have water coolers in office buildings for any other reason? Because, first of all, just on a very practical level, by that definition, complaining, nothing changes. It would be wonderful if I complained to Darcy about weighing more than I would like to these days. It would be wonderful if my complaining to her about that, she would go, okay, poof, and all of a sudden those 10 pounds most of us women carry in our back pocket to bring out as a little complaint, went off. But you know what? I don't think it works that way. But, I'll keep the story going. And really, when we complain, when we're talking to people who have nothing they can do about it, we're making ourselves a victim because we just keep talking about it, but we're never moving to get it fixed. Those are just sort of things out in the world. But the truth that we know as metaphysicians, so for some of you this is just a reminder, is that complaining feeds the condition. Complaining feeds the condition that we're complaining about. And why is that? It's because of something that's called the power of our word. It is the power of our thought as word, but it is also, boy, is it, the power of the spoken word. Jesus the Christ said, by your word, you are either justified or condemned. There is power in what we think and speak. You are either justified or condemned. And I don't think he meant when we justify and try to be right, although that's a whole nother talk. But either we raise ourselves and our life up, or we shoot our life down. When we complain, Emma says, we not only increase the condition, but we fix our reality right at the point of that complaint. Oh man, I hate this part of my life. Oh man, I hate my job. Oh man, I hate my body. Oh man, my house is such a junk heap, it'll never get fixed. Oh man, And Emma said it this way, and I love this. I've never read this before. It's just like in the Science of Mind, what we call our textbook. Every time I'm reading through it, I find different things. So I tell people what a great bargain the book is because there's always something new in it. And I love Emma Curtis Hopkins' Christian spiritual mental practice because there's always something new in it. And I found this thing. She said, we know, let me back up for a minute. We know in our teaching that why our word is so powerful, what all these people were pointing to is there's actually an aspect of the way the universe works called the law that takes the predominant pattern, trend of our thinking and delivers it back into our life. It is done unto you as you believe. That's kind of the basis of our teaching. Well, this is how Emma talked about it. She said, principle, meaning that aspect of God that works that way, principle is so gracious that it doesn't second guess us. If we think life is crummy, then principle will say, okay, honey, you want life to be crummy? That's what you're talking about all the time. That must be what you want. That's what I will deliver back to you. So this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In the book that we're reading for the class I'm teaching, Shortcut to a Miracle, they say this reminder. It said that we think of the power of positive thinking. We like to talk about that power of positive thinking. Well, negative thinking is just as powerful. And in fact, when you think about much of your negative thinking and complaining, there's a lot of energy and juice in there, isn't there? Especially if you want some attention sometimes. Then that more energy and juice, the stronger the vibration that you are sending out on the law, that the law is taking, the principle is taking, that the universe is taking to bring back to your life. And the stronger you get yourself in that attitude of disaster or yuck, you become the vibrational match for other yuck and draw it right to you. Law of attraction, brothers and sisters. And though I never read the original quote, let's just think ourselves like Bill Clinton. Say, it's the focus, stupid. Not that I'm calling you stupid, or even calling myself stupid, but I feel that way sometimes. It's the focus. Where are we focused? Are we focused on what's not working, on what's annoying? Is that, and focus means where is the predominance of our thinking? Where is the predominance of our conversation? Or are we focused on what is lovely and what we want? What we want. What we are seeing in this shortcut to a miracle that's so great is how physics is really cooperating with our metaphysics, our science of mind teaching. And some of you eat up this scientific stuff. I don't particularly, maybe it's probably a story I tell myself, but I love this book because it makes the physics part very simple. And it says it in this way. But first I'll say, Deepak Chopra, the great expounder of metaphysics and our new thought teaching, he refers to God as the field of all possibilities, which as soon as I read that, I grabbed that. I love thinking of God, the universe, the infinite, as the field of all possibilities, not just some possibilities, all possibilities. And in Shortcut to a Miracle, what the authors say is that what they found in the experiments that was so extraordinary that tipped traditional physics on its head was the whole thing that light sometimes acted like a wave and sometimes acted like a particle. And a wave is very different than a particle. And I won't go through all that, but they said that even some of the experimenters found that the light would be dancing in and out. It would wave, particle. And that they would further extend that to see that everything is a tendency waiting to happen. That in the universe, what we might call the ethers, what we might call in our jargon, the unformed substance, is tendencies waiting to occur, and they wait to occur based on what? Upon what we think and call out by the power of our word and focus thought into being. We call it. I'm going out to visit my in-laws. I can declare that it's going to be a terrible time because my mother-in-law is going to do that stuff she always does, or my father-in-law is going to do that stuff he always does, which is actually not true. I've been very blessed in the in-law department. Or we can call it good. I'm going to be awake to something wonderful about my in-laws I've never been awake to before and enjoy it. We can call it, and it will be so. So instead of complaining when we have these places in our life that don't work. We have these places that we wish were different. We'll be honest. It's not like, oh yes, I'm not in hell. And I'm going to pretend that even though I have this nasty thing happening, or I can't pay my rent, life is good. That is not what we teach. And even Emma says, we don't deny the stuff we might have to complain about. We don't deny it. But what we do is, once we catch it, we then describe the good we want in its place. And she says we tell the truth about it. And that can kind of send some of us analyzers into a tizzy, but telling the truth means that if those tendencies, if all those possibilities are waiting to occur, then the truth is we can call those possibilities into being. We can call abundance into being. We can call wholeness into being. We can call love into being. Not in 1 second necessarily, but by focused, consistent using our word and our thought to declare and announce a new reality for ourselves. We can fill our mind with healing thoughts, which are those thoughts of good, those thoughts of possibility. We may not see the possibility here, but we put our thoughts there to call them forth, to bring that tendency into reality. And that is what affirmative prayer does, the mainstay of our teaching. That affirmative prayer, we declare what is possible, we declare what we desire, and then we get in that place of imagining and allow that be the juiciness. We allow that be what we have the energy on. Instead of the energy of the fear or the complaint, the energy of what we deeply desire, and be in that energy, and that energy is irresistible to bringing us our good. Emma says it is an irresistible energy. And what we would say is we become that magnetic, that vibrational match for the good we desire. It's as if, you got magnets with two ends, you know how they go, you try to put them together. If there is good and greater life that is trying to find its way to us, because we teach that God is always giving of its good. It is always giving. It isn't raining down little punishments to test us. It can feel like that, but that's not what's happening. It is always giving of life and greater life. But if we've got that magnet in our thinking turned the opposite way, then all that good gets deflected. Pew, pew. Or the Wonder Woman, no, I can't have that good because I'm not good enough myself, So we turn the magnet around to become a magnet for good. Not by being humble, not by working harder, not by struggling, not by anything like that, but being an open, receptive place for good. And by letting our hearts and minds and being claim the good we desire and be in it and live in it, create its reality right here, right where we are. And another little practice that we infuse in there is gratitude. Not I guess I should be grateful for what I got. No. Start looking for things to be grateful for and telling the truth about them. I am so grateful to Jason Fan for bringing these banners for the 1 Billion Rising event. Who knew that the 1 Billion Rising event would give us this wonderful mental equivalent of what's possible to have here in terms of meaningful, cool, bright, I'll call it decor, but that's not the word I mean, but just more liveliness, more life, more color. And a possible means to create that. It's also inspired Bobby. She's thinking she might make one, or 2, or 5. Who knew? I am so grateful to that man. I am so grateful to that event. And as I express my gratitude and live in that gratitude, what happens? My heart opens up. I have joy. What do I become a magnet for? More things to be grateful for. Where my thought goes, there my life flows. If I focus on gratitude, my thought goes to what I'm grateful for. That's the way my life will flow toward more things, toward noticing more things, and toward having more things to be grateful for. And if you just went to sleep because you heard that 50 bazillion times, Emma tells us, ingratitude paints hard lines on the face. We'd be wanting any of that. So, I like Emma. She's very, very practical. Who wants hard lines? So, here's a daily practice that I recommend. that will shift us out of complaint mode and shift our thoughts. And if you like this, but for some reason your mind is not containing the 5 points or whatever that it is, email me and I will be happy to email you the list. So don't get all worried now. First thing in the morning, raise your sights on good. That's a quote from Emma. Raise your sights on good. Start the very morning putting your attention on the highest thoughts you can have. Whether it is thoughts of God and the possibilities of God, whether it is simply the person or the idea that you love most in the world, raise your sights on good and then dwell, allow yourself to mentally and then emotionally dwell in the possibilities of good for your life. So start the morning that way. Then through the day, allow yourself to be, like we used to all make in the 70s or 60s, we made those dream catcher things, or our kids did, that you hang over the bed. Become a catcher for good. Notice anything that's wonderful during the day, whether it's the song of a bird, whether it's flowers. I went to my dentist last week and turned up a street, and there were all these cherry blossom trees that had blossomed already. Of course, me still thinking to myself from northern climes, February and we got cherry blossoms? I hadn't seen any cherry blossom trees yet, or I hadn't been aware. Who knows? I could have been driving by that day. Those beautiful pink buds were on 3 trees. What a delightful thing. So allow yourself to be awake to something delightful, to something beautiful. Somebody does you a favor. Somebody compliments you. Allow yourself to dwell in it. Don't you be deflecting it. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. Hey, can I take you to lunch? Oh, no, I couldn't. No, Take it. Dwell in it. See it as the good the world is trying to give you. And then say, and you guys know I don't usually do this, but this is one I just had to do. Say, as you let yourself dwell in the wonderfulness of that experience, whether it's a little tiny thing or a big thing, the universe doesn't know. You dwell and you make it big and you say, my life is so wonderful. And I want you to practice that. So let's do that right now. My life is so wonderful. I see a cherry blossom tree. I look at it and say, that is beautiful. My life is so wonderful. My daughter calls and says she's coming to visit me. Yay! My life is so wonderful. I try on a pair of pants and hey, they actually look okay. My life is so wonderful. My spouse turns over in bed and I realize how blessed I am to have someone that loves me share my bed. My life is so wonderful. I am going to a Dixieland Jazz Festival in a wonderful part of the world. My life is so wonderful. And if that little voice in the back of your head is saying, oh, that's not so wonderful. There are lots of people having a lot more wonderful lives than I am. Boy, I'll bet somebody over somewhere is, just won the lottery. Now that would be, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Just stop it. Knock it off. It does you no good, and it may be doing something else to you. You have just taken yourself out of heaven and put yourself in that place we don't believe in. And as my father used to say to me, which I also found in the Shortcut to a Miracle book, so I know it's miracle, said, comparisons are odious. Comparisons are odious. I don't know who first said that. In fact, I can't even hear it in my head without my name. Elizabeth, comparisons are odious. That's not what this is about. As soon as you deny the wonder, the beauty, the fabulousness of something in your life, the universe goes, oh, okay, no more of that. So allow yourself to appreciate every little thing and declare your life wonderful. And if this sounds like Pollyanna, airy-fairy, do the experiment. That's what this teaching is also. That's why it's called the science of mind. Even though it sounds goofy now, that's what's called the science of mind, because he didn't say, just believe this. Ernest Holmes said, practice this. Take it, be the scientist, be the experimenter in your own life. Try this for 40 days. So, throughout the day, let your eye, let your ear, let your heart fall on something. Declare your life is so wonderful. Now, when something crops up that does annoy you, or is something in your ancient past that you would have complained about, do something about it. Either do something about it or accept it. Don't pretend that you're going to do something about it by telling all these other people about it. Either go to the person who can help you, go to the person, the agency, whatever. Do something about it to fix it, or let it go. Say, I'm not going to have this cloud pollute my thinking anymore. I told you guys that we've been doing these 52 small changes you can make, a change a week that will end up to a big year of a wonderful change. And I decided to put them in the in our e-blast instead of trying to fold them into the top, because sometimes they just don't work. But one was, the one for this week actually was, take off your shoes before you come into the house. I said, don't bring inner pollutants into your house. And it goes off on a whole thing like that. Complaints are pollutants into your mind, so don't let those pollutants, those external pollutants, enter your mind and your heart. And in the moment, if some annoyance rises up, just exhale out all that annoyance, and then breathe in spirit, inspiration, breathing in God. The breath of God is breathing us, always. Then, at night, do a gratitude journal, especially if you have never done one before. Do a gratitude journal. 10 things. List 10 things every evening that you're grateful for. In the beginning, you may have to repeat. That's okay. You know, maybe you just love your hair. That's okay. Maybe you just love that you had a chocolate chip cookie today. Find 10 things. If you have to repeat them for a couple days, that's okay. But what will happen as you start getting, oh, I'm gonna have to come up with 10 things tonight. I better start paying attention. So as you pay attention, you will see more and more. The law of attention. Your attention increases. So your good increases. So, you can pay attention on the things that annoy you and make a list of all the things that annoy you if you want more of those in your life. But I would invite you to think elsewise. So let's take this fast from complaining. Let's try on this thing of having each of our lives be a complaint-free zone. You've only got now, it's the 3rd, Easter's the 31st, so you have 28 days, but see, this is an advanced crowd, so you can do in 28 what it took people in 40. We'll just make that the new spiritual completion number. So, you with me? Let's just do a little more. It doesn't have to be send the walls down. And maybe it's just because you guys are doing internal, yes. But I want a little, each of you to just have a little conviction behind that. Are you with me? Yes. So let's pray. And in this moment, that's right. In this moment, cutting across all the stuff of life that has bugged us in the past, we turn our attention away from that. We turn our attention to that infinite, which I call God, which we can call the universe or the uniforce or good itself or love itself or infinite power. That good is the life I am living. It is the only life I am living. The only life that lives itself through me is that life of God. And I know that is true for me. It is true for every person in this room. We are God in expression. We are good in expression. And as expressions of that one life, we are heirs to all the good that God is, just by the nature of who we are. And so I declare for myself, knowing that God is infinite joy, infinite wholeness, infinite peace, infinite abundance, infinite love, infinite good of every kind. I now let go of, remove, eliminate those thoughts that want to go toward difficulty, toward struggle, toward annoyance, toward complaining. I eliminate that as soon as a thought enters my mind. I release it and remember what my soul already knows. That I am a magnificent expression of God, and no matter where my current reality, my current earth reality may be, I can turn my attention to the good that I desire, the good that is the truth, the ultimate reality of my being, my soul, and I claim it, I welcome it in, I open myself to it. And as I do so, the hold that any of those annoying conditions had on me drops away. Either the condition itself entirely dissolves, or I simply rise above it in joy and knowing that it need not diminish my experience of full free living. Because I rise in God, and I rise in truth. I rise in and as the one life. And so I move forward in joy. And I move forward into a new zone, a zone of good. And I am so very, very grateful. And I release this word knowing that it has power and it moves upon a law that always and only says yes. So it is.